Tonight, you do not need to try so hard to find peace. You do not need to control your breath or silence your thoughts. Just let the world outside grow dim and distant, like the echo of a song fading over water. Here, in this quiet space, you can finally rest. Every word you hear tonight is a small, light, gentle, slow, guiding you deeper into stillness. Let the teachings of the Buddha unfold softly within you, not as lessons to be remembered, but as feelings to be lived. There is no need to understand. Simply allow your heart to listen. The night will cradle you. The breath will hold you. And peace will find you on its own. If these moments bring calm to your heart, stay with us. Subscribe to this channel, and each night return to this gentle sanctuary where stories become meditation and silence becomes sleep. Close your eyes now, dear friend, and let us begin the journey, not to somewhere far away, but back to the quiet center of your being, where everything has always been enough. And now, as your breath begins to slow and the body sinks deeper into the softness beneath you, let us begin the first story. Imagine the night outside, vast, gentle, and filled with the quiet rhythm of unseen life. Somewhere beyond the mountains, a river is waiting. Its waters have forgotten how to flow, standing still beneath the pale moon, uncertain of where to go next. Yet even in stillness, it listens. It listens to the whisper of wind through reeds, to the patient hum of the earth, to the echo of its own heart. Tonight, we will follow that river, not to reach an ocean, but to remember what it means to rest. Let your breath move as the water moves. Let your thoughts drift like leaves upon its surface. The story begins not with sound, but with silence. The kind of silence that knows how to hold you gently until you too begin to flow again. Story 1. The river learns to rest. The night begins like a hand cupped gently around a candle. The air is cool and soft, and the world has quieted its breath. Beyond the towns, where porches creak and late trains hum through the dark, a river pauses beneath the moon and listens to itself. It has traveled long from snowmelt in the mountains, through meadows and canyons, past fields that glimmer with dew and memory. For so long, it has only known motion, believing its purpose was to hurry to reach, to merge with the sea. But tonight, something within it softens. It feels the ache of distance, the weight of endless becoming. And so for the first time, it stops, not out of exhaustion, but out of quiet wonder. When it stops, the world leans closer. the wind lowers its voice. The owl turns its head. The ice loosens its grip. In stillness, the river begins to remember the sound of rain on its skin, the scent of cedar from the mountain roots, the laughter of children skipping stones. It realizes that in its rushing, it has missed the tenderness of its own reflection. To rest is to see clearly. To pause is to return home. Up on the footbridge, a man stands watching. His breath fogs the air in small clouds that drift and vanish. He has walked here every night since his wife passed away. At first, it was to escape the silence of the house, the silence that pressed against the walls like water wanting to flood. But over time, the bridge became a place not of escape, but of acceptance. He leans over the rail and sees the river stilled beneath him, silver under the moonlight, patient and vast. Something in him, some small, trembling place, begins to rest too. Farther downstream, a woman kneels by the bank with a small wooden skiff she built by hand. Her father had taught her how to shape cedar until it sang beneath the blade, how to wait for the grain to reveal its pattern. After he died, she built this boat not to sail, but to listen a vessel, not for distance, but for stillness. Tonight, she sets it on the water and lies inside. The current cradles her without carrying her away. She closes her eyes and feels the soft turning of the river beneath her ribs, like a breath she forgot she was holding. In the mountains, a monk steps out into the frost and looks toward the valley. He is not famous, not known, just a man who tends a small garden and shares tea with travelers. His teacher once said, "If you cannot sit for an hour, sit for one breath. If even that is too long, then feel the space before the next breath. That too is peace." Tonight, as the river below learns to rest, he smiles. The same stillness that enters the water enters him. He folds his hands in his sleeves, feeling the pulse of the world slow. The river, the man, the woman, the monk, each part of one breathing body. The moonlight binds them together. The sound of the earth shifting becomes a lullaby, too quiet to hear, but too deep to forget. And somewhere in a house by that same river, someone lies awake, listening, without knowing why, feeling a calm rise in the chest like a tide. If you are listening now, wherever you are, let the river teach you what it has learned. You do not need to hurry. You do not need to fix or reach or finish anything. You can rest. You can let the night hold you as gently as water holds the moon. And as you breathe softly slowly, deeply, you may feel what the river feels: the relief of stillness, the kindness of pause, the quiet joy of simply being enough. Story 2. The candle bows to the wind. The evening had thinned to a silk of blue when the first wind came down from the ridge, slow as a hand smoothing the wrinkles from a bedsheet. On a low table near the window, a single candle waited inside a glass chimney, its wick trimmed short, its body new and unscarred. The woman who lived in this small house by the cedar grove struck a match and held it to the wick until a seed of flame took root. The light rose small and confident, then steadied into a narrow, breathing tongue. She cupped her palms around the glass the way a mother cups a child's ear, to whisper something meant only for them. For warmth, she said to the room that knew her voice. For company, she sat and let the light settle over the furniture like a friendly animal finding its way to the floor by the hearth. Her father had taught her to make a flame behave, not to dominate it, just to understand it. Fire likes a little respect, he would say, dipping the match and striking another, showing her how to hold it sideways so the head flared without spitting. He taught her to trim wicks to a 1/4 inch and to read the color in the light too blue, and the fuel is starved, too yellow, and the smoke will stain the chimney. A steady flame is not a stubborn flame, he said. It's a flame that has learned to bow. She thought of that now, as the wind tested the frame of the window, and the candle trembled, recovered, trembled again. She had never liked hard winds. They reminded her of voices raised in kitchens, of doors closed too quickly, of nights when she fell asleep with her hands in fists. But this wind did not arrive to uproot or accuse. It moved as if it had listened to the trees first, as if it had bowed before stepping through the grove, asking permission the way a guest does when a home is quiet. Across town, a boy knelt on the church steps with a small tin lantern he had found in the thrift store for $2 and a handful of pennies. He had cleaned the glass with the edge of his shirt and polished the metal until his reflection shyly returned. The lantern was for his mother, who worked the night shift at the long-term care home, and he wanted to light a path for her walk home, the way she lit his path each morning with pancakes and jokes and that soft tug on his backpack strap that said, "Look at me for a second, before the world takes you." He struck the lighter and brought the new flame into the lantern, then closed the little door and watched how wind licked at the vents, and the flame bowed in answer, first to the left, then the right, like a small dancer learning the manners of a stage. He had learned to fear wind in other seasons, when storms rattled the town, and the adults spoke in their storm voices, measuring problems by the tree. That oak will go, if the root's as rotten as it looks. But tonight, the wind seemed like a teacher, with a gentle hand, correcting without humiliation, shaping without scorn. In a monastery, tucked into a fold of hills, 2 states away. A monk whose knees ached and whose hair had thinned to the wisdom of winter set a clay lamp on the stone sill. The lamp was shallow and plain, the way humility is plain, hand-shaped, by a woman in the village who brought her grief to the kiln and fed it to the heat until it came out shining. He soaked the wick in oil, coiled it like a sleeping snake, and touched a match to its tip. The flame rose, yearned, settled, and then reacted to the same wind that had traveled valley to valley and found every lit thing. He watched it bow. A thought came, the way a line from a sutra returns, unbidden. Strength is not in refusing to move. Strength is the grace with which you bend. He remembered the novice he had once been, stubborn with certainty, at war with distraction, trying to sit through pain as if pain were an enemy he could outlast. He smiled at the long patience of the world with beginners. Back in the cedar house, the woman stood and opened the window a finger's width. Cold air slipped through fox scent and pine pitch and the iron tang of night. The flame in the glass chimney tilted, stretched, then lowered its head, one bow, then another, as if greeting an elder. The woman felt something in her ribs respond, a small permission, loosening at the hinge between breath and thought. "I see you," she said to the wind, surprising herself. "I see what you're doing." The wind did not answer, but the room answered for it. The paper shade shivered. The long fern in the corner hummed with the tiniest tremor, and the candle became beautiful in its obedience. She thought of all the times she had tried to be a wall against what came, a wall against bad news, against change, against the slow reweaving of a life after it tears. But walls crack, and even when they don't, walls do not sleep. A bow may rest between breaths. A bow can return to standing. The boy on the church steps sat with his lantern and imagined his mother seeing it from the corner, the way light wears a familiar face when you want very much to be welcomed. The wind pressed at the vents again, and he put his palm flat to the tin, feeling it warm through, learning the language of heat. A passing couple paused and smiled. "You guarding a lighthouse?" the man asked. The boy shrugged, but he gave the lantern a name. In that moment, harbor. The wind rose and fell in a pattern, more music than weather, and he discovered, as people do, when something becomes a little sacred, that he could time his breathing to the flame's bow. In, the flame rose. Out, the flame inclined its head. He did it again. In, out. The lantern became a metronome for a heart that had been beating too fast since his father left. A heart that occasionally asked impossible questions at 2 a.m. and then listened to itself, not because answers were coming, but because listening is the first mercy. At the monastery, the old monk moved his lamp to the floor and sat in front of it with the patience of stones. He remembered a teaching given in a small room long ago. You may think surrender is the same as defeat, but watch the flame. When the wind arrives, the flame does not fight, or it will gutter out. It bows. In bowing, it regains its center. He had wanted, then, to prove to the teacher that he could sit unmoved in any weather, as if certainty were a fortress. It took him many winters to learn that the fortress he built kept out the light too. Now, when sorrow visited, he bowed. When joy visited, he bowed as well. He watched the wick consume itself, generous as a life lived honestly, and he felt the quiet goodwill that sometimes comes when we stop trying so hard to outsmart change. In a hospital corridor, half lit by vending machines, a nurse paused beside a family sleeping in chairs. The new mother's head rested awkwardly against a wall, the father's chin buried in his chest, a grandmother snoring in soft, apologetic bursts. The nurse placed a battery tea light under the newborn's photo, clipped to the bassinet, the smallest, safest imitation of fire, a symbol only, a kindness. The wind could not reach them here, but somehow the bowing continued, invisible, a rhythm of giving and receiving that threaded itself through the hall, the beep that softened the sigh that answered the cup of water placed on a table within reach of a hand that would wake to need it. She stood looking at the tiny light, remembering candles she had lit for losses she could not carry any other way. She bowed her head to the work and went on. By midnight, the wind had become a companion, a presence that needed no translation. The woman at the cedar grove lowered herself to the floor with the candle and watched how the flame's small kneeling carried dignity rather than fear. She whispered a name she had not said aloud since spring, and the light wavered as if recognizing the syllables. She did not reach toward it, did not cup it like a fragile thing. She let it speak its language of small arcs and recoveries. The boy on the steps heard keys at the end of the block and stood, lifting the lantern with both hands as if carrying a bowl of water to someone thirsty. His mother turned the corner, saw the glow, and in the between surprise and understanding, something unclenched in her face. They said very little. The light did the talking. The monk watched the pool of oil diminish and thought about endings as a kind of exactness. The wick had been long enough, the oil sufficient, the night adequate to the lesson. He pinched the wick to douse it and sat in the smoke, the after scent of sesame and ash, the way the body sits in the memory of touch once the hand is gone. He bowed not to anyone in particular, but to the whole brief ceremony of being alive under a moving sky. Outside, the wind combed the grass around the cloister and then softened like a word that no longer needed emphasis. If you are awake with us, let the candle offer its simple truth. It does not resist the inevitable. It shapes itself to the moment without abandoning what it is. When the wind leans close, it bows. When the wind passes, it rises again. You might try this with your own breath. Feel the gentle pressure of the world against your chest, its demands, its weather, its grief, and its thunder. And let yourself incline, not in defeat, but in respect for the enormity that moves through all things. Then rise just enough to keep the room lit. Again and again, in 1,000 private ways, bow and rise and bow, until even your worries learn the courtesy of quiet. And when sleep approaches, curious, cautious, like a bird testing the branch, do not hold yourself motionless, as if the branch will break. Let the bird land. Let the branch sway. Let the wind do what it has always done, pass through you, teach you, leave you a little more fluent in the language of change. Tonight, if you feel the need to be strong in the gentlest way. Be the candle that bows to the wind and never stops being a flame. Story 3. The Lotus. Beneath the mud. Dawn came slowly to the valley, as if the sky itself were hesitant to touch the earth. Mist clung to the edges of the lake, and the world seemed made of breath, thin, cool, unbroken. Beneath that still surface, where silt drifted like forgotten dust, a lotus waited. Its stem was long and slender, coiling through the murk, reaching toward the dim light above. For seasons, it had known only the heaviness of mud and the silence of roots. Yet something deep within it whispered rise. The villagers who lived near the lake did not notice it. They passed by each day carrying baskets of laundry or dreams or grief. Children threw pebbles into the shallows, watching the ripples scatter like thoughts. No one saw the tender shoot twisting in the darkness below, gathering its strength from what others called dirt. But the lotus knew the mud was not its prison. It was its cradle. One morning, an old monk came to the lake. He carried a wooden bowl and wore robes the color of dawn before it breaks. His walk was slow, not from weakness, but from attention. Each step seemed to listen. He knelt by the shore, dipped his fingers into the cold water, and smiled. Even in the thickest mud, he murmured, "Life remembers light." He watched a single bubble rise to the surface and burst a brief applause for something unseen. At the edge of town, a young woman sat by her window, staring at the gray water in the distance. She had not gone there in months. Once, she painted every morning, flowers, rivers, clouds. But now, her brushes lay dry, her colors dulled by the long ache of a heart that had forgotten its rhythm. Her brother had gone to the city and not returned. Her mother's letters had stopped arriving. Every corner of her room smelled faintly of rain and waiting. Yet today, for no reason she could name, she felt the urge to walk. When she reached the lake, the air was cool enough to make her eyes water. The monk was still there, standing quietly, as though part of the landscape. He did not look at her, nor speak. He simply raised his bowl, filled it with water, and set it back down. The woman followed his gaze and saw something small moving under the surface, a pale bud trembling, but determined, pushing through the dark film of mud. She knelt beside it. Her fingers hovered above the water, but did not touch. The bud quivered, caught in its own struggle, and then almost shyly broke through. The petals unfurled one by one, shy as morning eyes. The color was soft, at first almost white, then deepened into a calm, impossible pink. The air smelled suddenly clean, like forgiveness. The monk spoke, then his voice quiet enough that the ripples did not hear it. "The lotus does not curse the mud," he said. "It uses it. What seems dirty is only unfinished." The woman nodded, though she did not fully understand. She only knew that something in her chest loosened the way soil softens after rain. The silence around them grew wide and gentle, and the world felt new again, as if every sorrow had been washed, but not erased. She returned the next day, and the next, sometimes alone, sometimes with a sketchbook. She drew not just the lotus, but the patterns of light around it, the reflections that changed each hour, the insects that danced above its head, the small shadow it cast when the sun leaned low. Her lines were slow, deliberate breathing. The flower had taught her that beauty was not separate from struggle. It was born through it, like gold through fire, like truth through pain. Weeks passed. The monk came less often, but his presence lingered in the air like the scent of incense long after the stick has gone to ash. When he did visit, he would stand at the same spot and bow to the flower. The woman began to do the same. Sometimes storms came, the sky darkened, the wind tore at the lake's surface, and the lotus disappeared beneath the waves. The woman's heart would tighten in fear, as if her own breath had been taken. But each time the sun returned, there it was again, bent, perhaps, but never broken. Its petals shone even brighter for having survived. The villagers began to notice. They came to see the lotus, to take pictures, to leave small offerings, coins, rice folded, paper prayers. But the monk only smiled and said, "Do not worship the flower. Worship what it teaches." One evening, near sunset, the woman found the monk waiting by the lake. His robe caught the golden light, glowing like something remembered from a dream. He turned to her and said, "You have been watching the lotus for many days. What have you learned?" She looked at the water, at her reflection, trembling beside the flowers, and said that peace does not come from escaping the mud. It comes from growing through it. The monk's eyes softened. "Then you have seen the truth. The lotus and the mud are one. To reject one is to reject both." As he walked away, the woman stayed, watching the last light fade. The petals of the lotus closed slowly, folding inward, like hands in prayer. She realized that this too was part of the lesson, knowing when to open, when to rest. Night fell. The stars scattered across the lake like seeds waiting for spring. The woman closed her eyes and listened to the quiet lap of water against the shore. Somewhere in the dark, she heard her own heartbeat answering. If you are listening now, somewhere far from that lake, perhaps you too have known the heaviness of mud, the feeling of being buried, unseen, uncertain. But know this, beneath the weight, something in you is still reaching. The same light that calls to the lotus calls to you. You are not stuck. You are becoming. You are not lost. You are taking root. And when the time is right, when your patience and your pain have ripened into something gentle, you too will rise. Let the night be your water. Let your breath be the stem. Do not fear the darkness that holds you. It is teaching you how to bloom. Story 4. The Silent Bell. In a quiet valley, cradled by mist and the steady breath of pine, there stood an old temple whose bell had not been struck in years. Its body of bronze hung from a beam blackened by time, and a thin vine, bold in its patience, had begun to climb its curve. Once the bell's sound rolled across the valley, like dawn spilling light into shadowed fields. Monks paused their sweeping to bow. Farmers in distant terraces lifted their heads. Even the river seemed to slow its speech to listen. But then came a storm no fiercer than others, but precise in its cruelty. The bell cracked. Just one line, thin as a thread, but deep enough that its voice no longer sang, only shuddered. And so, the monks stopped striking it. Seasons turned like prayer beads. Leaves came and went. Rains washed stone, and silence filled the temple's mornings. Birds nested in the eaves, their songs small but brave. The abbot, a man whose hair had gone the color of dusted snow, would sometimes touch the rim of the bell as he passed. His fingers lingered on the crack, the way one traces an old scar, not out of pity, but memory. It is enough, he would whisper, though to whom he spoke, none knew. One autumn morning, a young monk named Tenzin arrived. He had walked for 7 days from the monastery in the next province, carrying only a robe, a staff, and a heart full of questions that words could not hold. He came because he had heard of the silent bell, the one that could no longer speak. If I can listen to silence long enough, he thought perhaps it will tell me something that sound cannot. The abbot welcomed him with tea that tasted faintly of smoke and mountain flowers. They sat without talk. Only when the steam had faded did the old man speak. "You've come to listen," he said. "But remember, listening is not waiting for sound. It is resting where nothing needs to happen." Tenzin bowed and said, "Then I will begin." The abbot smiled, eyes glinting like mica in the dark. "Begin nowhere, and you will not need to end." So Tenzin stayed, his days filled with sweeping leaves, fetching water, tending the small garden behind the meditation hall. He learned the rhythm of the valley, the way fog arrived, as softly as forgiveness, the way the pines whispered secrets to the wind that no one else could keep. And always the bell waited. Each dawn he passed beneath it, feeling the air shift as he did, as though the bell, though silent, still shaped the space around it. One evening, as rain stitched the roofs with silver threads, Tenzin stood before the bell and looked up at its cracked body. He raised a hand and let his palm rest against the metal. It was old rough in places, warm in others, where the air had lingered. He whispered, "Are you still listening?" The bell gave no answer. Yet something inside him trembled. A recognition, perhaps, or a memory not his own. He sat beneath it, cross-legged, as the rain deepened and night gathered its quiet cloak. Hours passed. The world reduced itself to breath, to the small drip of water from the eaves, to the heartbeat of the storm. Somewhere between waking and dream, Tenzin heard it a sound so faint he thought it came from within himself. A tone fractured but whole in its brokenness, vibrating not through air but through attention. It was as if the bell had decided to ring, not outward, but inward, its voice traveling through the silence rather than disturbing it. He felt tears he did not understand. At dawn, the abbot found him still sitting there. "You heard it, didn't you?" the old man said. Tenzin opened his eyes, startled. "How did you know?" The abbot smiled. "When a bell speaks inside you, the world changes its color around your shoulders." In the days that followed, Tenzin noticed things he hadn't before. The hum of bees in the azaleas sounded like chanting. The wind in the corridors carried echoes of laughter from years gone by. Even the crack in the bell caught light in a way that looked almost like a smile. The silence was no longer empty. It was full, swollen with presence. One evening, a traveler arrived, an old woman carrying a bundle of wildflowers and a grief too heavy for her small frame. Her son had died in the far mountains, and she had come to offer prayers at the temple where he once trained. She knelt before the altar, her shoulders shaking. "I have nothing to give," she said softly, "and nothing left to keep." Tenzin watched from the doorway. Without thinking, he walked to the bell. He looked at the crack, traced it with his finger, and then did something no one had dared. For years, he struck it gently with the wooden mallet. The sound was not perfect. It wavered, split, carried both clarity and sorrow. But it was beautiful, trembling, human alive. The woman lifted her head. The abbot turned. The birds in the eaves fell silent, listening. The bell's fractured tone stretched across the valley, reaching into every ear that had forgotten what listening felt like. When the echo faded, the woman's sobs softened into breath. "Thank you," she whispered. "That sound." It was as if he answered. Tenzin bowed his head. "Maybe he did," he said. From that day, the bell was no longer called silent. The monks struck it at dawn and dusk, its imperfect note, reminding them that even what is broken can still hold beauty. The abbot often said, "The crack is where compassion enters." If life were flawless, we would never hear its song. As winter came, snow fell thick upon the temple roofs, muting every step. The bell's sound grew softer in the cold, like an old voice learning to rest. Sometimes, in the blue hour before sunrise, villagers heard it faintly across the valley. They said it sounded like memory breathing, like forgiveness finding form. Years later, when the abbot passed away, the monks gathered at dawn to strike the bell one final time in his honor. The sound rose fragile but enduring, echoing through the white air. Tenzin stood beside it, older now, his face carved with quiet lines. He thought of the first night he had heard its voice, and realized that what he had heard was not sound, but truth. Nothing is ever too broken to belong. As he turned to leave, a small bird landed atop the bell, pecked at the vine, and began to sing. The note it made joined with the bronze's hum, and for a moment, no one could tell where one sound ended and the other began. If you are listening now, wherever you are, know this: silence is not the absence of sound. It is the space that allows every sound to mean something. The bell did not stop singing. It simply changed the direction of its song. And perhaps you too carry such a bell within you, one that has cracked from time and loss, one that trembles when touched by memory. Don't hide the crack. Let it ring. For the world does not need your perfection. It needs your resonance. So when the night feels too still and your heart too heavy to move, place your hand over your chest and listen. Somewhere beneath the noise of thought, the hum of machines, the pulse of worry, there is a faint, steady sound waiting to be heard. That is your bell. It may be cracked, but it still sings. And in its song, there is nothing to fix, only everything to love. Story 5. The mountain that bowed to the sea. In the ancient country where mist rose like thought from the earth, and gulls stitched their names into the salt air, there stood a mountain that believed it would last forever. Its peak caught the first light of morning and the final breath of dusk. Storms leaned against it and broke apart. Rivers curved at its feet, like pilgrims circling a shrine. For 1,000 years, the mountain looked down on the sea and called it restless. You never stay, it said, listening to the endless rush and retreat of waves. You spend your whole life coming and going. You have no roots, no memory. And the sea laughed softly against the cliffs. Perhaps it said, but I carry the shape of everything I touch. Then it withdrew, leaving the mountain to its certainty. Centuries passed. The mountain stood firm, while kingdoms rose and vanished like dust in the folds of its valleys. Temples crumbled, forests burned, and the mountain endured. Yet endurance, without listening, becomes a kind of blindness, and pride calcifies even stone. Deep inside its heart, small streams began to hum thin, secret songs that only water can remember. They whispered of motion, of release. The mountain ignored them. At the foot of the mountain, in a fishing village, pressed between rock and tide, lived a woman named Aiko. Her house was made of driftwood and weathered faith, its walls etched with salt like old skin. Every dawn she went to the shore with her nets and her silence. The sea was her companion, moody and forgiving in turns. Sometimes it brought her silver fish glinting like prayers. Sometimes only foam and emptiness. She never cursed it. The sea gives, the sea takes, she would say, and I am both. One morning when the fog lay thick as milk, and even the gulls had not yet found their voices, she looked up and saw that the mountain's crown had cracked. A line of white ran down its shoulder, like a tear frozen in mid-descent. She felt a shiver run through her, not of fear, but of recognition. Everything high, she whispered, must one day learn to bow. That night, rain came harder than it had in decades. It struck the roofs like drums, filled the wells, and turned the mountain streams into roaring veins of light. The villagers, huddled in their homes, listening to the thunder, walk across the sky. The mountain shuddered its deep roots, aching with the weight of water. Stones that had not moved in an age began to loosen, and rivers carried whispers of surrender down to the sea. Aiko stepped outside into the storm. Her lantern swayed, casting brief halos on the rain. She looked up toward the invisible peak and said, "Let go. Even mountains can rest." Far above her, a monastery clung to a ledge near the summit. Its wooden beams moaned in the wind, and inside, monks sat in a circle chanting not to stop the storm, but to understand it. Their abbot, a man whose eyes were the color of worn paper, said, "Do not pray for stillness. Pray to bow without breaking." His voice was nearly lost to the thunder, but the mountain heard. When morning came, the storm had gone. The sky was clean, rinsed of memory. The monks stepped outside to see the damage, and what they saw was not destruction, but transformation. The mountain's peak, once sharp and proud, had fallen into itself. Where there had been stone, now there was a curve, a gentle bend, as though the mountain had knelt toward the sea. And from the wound, where the rock had split, a spring burst forth clear, laughing water, tumbling down through moss and fern. In the village below, Iko followed the stream with her eyes until it reached the shore. It met the sea with a sigh so soft that even the gulls paused. She knelt beside it and cupped her hands in the water. It was cold, sweet, alive. "You've come down," she said to the mountain. "You've remembered how to move." From that day, the mountain and the sea spoke differently. Each dawn, the mist carried their voices. Between them, the low hum of stone learning patience, and the gentle hush of waves that knew how to forgive. The villagers noticed the change too. The air felt clearer, the rains kinder. Even the nets filled easier. The mountain bowed, the elders said, and the sea grew calm. Years passed. Children born after the storm thought the mountain had always looked this way, its head slightly inclined, as if in prayer. Only the oldest among them remembered when it had stood straight and unbending. They would point to the curve and tell stories how the mountain once believed it was the center of the world, and how the sea, through patience and song, taught it humility. One evening, Aiko grew sick. Her hair had turned the color of salt, her hands like driftwood, polished by time. As she lay near her window, she could hear the sea breathing and the distant murmur of the spring that came from the mountain's heart. She smiled faintly. "They are still talking," she whispered. Her daughter, who sat beside her, asked, "Who Mother Aiko closed her eyes?" "The ones who learned how to listen." That night, the tide came in higher than usual, washing over the stones near her home. When it retreated, it left a single white flower tangled in her fishing net. No one in the village had ever seen such a flower. It looked like a piece of the moon, its petals soft but unbroken. They placed it on Aiko's chest when she was buried, and the wind that day carried the scent of salt and rain all the way up the mountain. At the monastery, the abbot felt it and turned his face to the sea. He whispered, "May we all bow in our own time." Years became decades. Lichen painted new stories on the mountain's flank, and the sea continued its eternal rhythm of approach and retreat. One evening, a young pilgrim arrived at the monastery, weary from his climb. He asked the abbot, now older and softer in his gaze, "Master, why does this mountain bow?" The abbot poured him tea and said, "Because it met something greater than itself, and instead of resisting, it listened." The pilgrim frowned. "The sea, the sea," the abbot nodded, "and everything that moves, like it, time loss, love, and all the things that wash through us, whether we want them to or not." Later that night, the pilgrim went outside and stood near the edge of the cliff. The moon hung over the water like a coin half spent. He thought of all the ways he had tried to stay firm against grief, against change, against the ache of wanting to be right. He bowed not to pray, not to surrender, but simply to feel what it was like to stop resisting. In that moment, he heard it, a low, almost inaudible hum rising from the ground beneath his feet. The mountain was breathing, and in its breath was peace. If you are listening now, perhaps you too have been standing too tall for too long, trying to outlast the storm, to prove your strength by not moving. But mountains do not live forever, and stillness is not always strength. Sometimes the deepest wisdom is in the bow, in the willingness to bend, to meet the vastness of life without defense. The sea will come, as it always does, not to break you, but to teach you rhythm. Let it. Let the waves of your days wash against the stones of your heart. Let them polish you into something soft, something shining. And when the time comes, may you bow, not in defeat, but in grace. For even mountains, proud and eternal, must one day learn what the sea already knows, that to yield is not to fall, but to return to the flow that has always carried us home. Story 6. The cloud that learned to fall softly. At the edge of a vast desert where red stone met horizon, there drifted a single cloud that had forgotten how to fall. Day after day, it wandered through the great blue dome above the earth, white as bone, light as thought. Wind brushed its edges, sun shaped its belly into gold and pearl, but still it held itself together, refusing the slow surrender that turns mist into rain. It had watched other clouds darken open and dissolve into the waiting soil, and it pitied them. They disappear, it thought. I will endure. For many years it drifted over mountains and cities, over rivers that glittered like silver scars, over fields where farmers waited with cracked lips and hopeful eyes. It saw the smallness of life below, but did not yet feel kinship with it. It believed it was meant for distance. But pride, like drought, dries the soul. One afternoon, while crossing a barren valley in the north, the cloud met a wind that did not hurry. The wind had traveled across oceans, and sand had touched the backs of whales and the eyelids of children, and it carried the patience of long movement. You seem tired, the wind said. You've been holding yourself for a long time. The cloud stiffened. I am strong. I do not fall. The wind circled it gently. Even mountains crumble. Why should you not rest? But the cloud turned away and rose higher into the cold, where even the wind could not follow. Below, in that same valley, a monk walked the dry earth, his sandals filling with dust. He was old and bent, and his robe was the color of clay. He carried no staff, only a bowl for alms, and a smile that looked borrowed from the sun. He stopped often to drink from his breath, for there was no water. The people of the valley had not seen rain in 3 years. They prayed, sang, burned incense, but the sky stayed hard. Still the monk kept walking. The sky, he would say, is not cruel. It is only waiting to be understood. That night, he camped beside a dry riverbed. The moon rose like a pale question over the dunes. He looked up and saw the cloud glimmering faintly among the stars. "Ah," he murmured, "the one who cannot fall." He folded his robe beneath his head and slept, trusting that the earth would hold him no matter what the sky decided. At dawn, the cloud felt heavier. Its edges blurred, and something inside it ached, not pain, but a kind of longing. It looked down and saw the monk walking again, leaving small prints in the dust that the wind quickly erased. He will die, the cloud thought. Why does he keep moving? The wind, returning with the sunrise, whispered, "Because the ground believes in the sky, even when the sky forgets." Days passed. The monk reached a village where wells were nothing but mirrors of stone. The children's faces were thin, their voices hoarse. He sat beneath a cracked fig tree and closed his eyes. The villagers gathered, expecting prayers, but he only said, "Do not curse the sky. Sit with it. Listen." They did not understand, but they sat. Hours passed. The sun burned white. The monk said nothing. Above them, the cloud hovered, restless. It watched the people, their stillness, their waiting. Something inside it trembled the way a note trembles before becoming music. In the late afternoon, when the shadows stretched like long sighs, the cloud whispered, "If I fall, will I vanish?" The wind replied, "If you fall, you will become." That evening, as the monk opened his eyes, he felt the first drop touch his wrist, a cold, deliberate blessing. Another followed, and another, until the air itself began to hum. The cloud, after years of holding itself, began to release. Its white turned to silver, its body to song. Rain fell in slow, forgiving sheets, soft enough to kiss without bruising. The villagers cried out and lifted their faces, letting the sky wash their disbelief away. Children danced barefoot in the mud. The monk smiled and lifted his bowl, letting it fill with water. "The cloud," he said, "has remembered how to give." High above the cloud felt itself thinning. Where once there had been weight, now there was only light. It did not fear the emptying. As each drop fell, it saw the ground bloom a single blade of green, then another. It saw the riverbed darken with movement. It saw life rising where death had slept. So this is what it means to fall, it whispered. For 3 days and nights, the rain continued. When it stopped, the cloud was almost gone, a faint breath above the blue. The wind returned and asked, "Are you afraid?" "No," said the cloud. "I am everywhere now." The wind smiled, invisible, but present. That is the secret. To fall is not to end, it is to arrive. The valley changed, the wells filled. The fig tree put forth new leaves. The monk stayed until the first flowers opened, then gathered his robe and walked on. He left no words, only footprints that the wet sand briefly remembered. Seasons turned. The valley grew lush, its fields green ribbons between the rocks. Children were born who had never seen drought, and their laughter carried on the same wind that once spoke to the cloud. The villagers built a small shrine beside the river, not to worship the rain, but to honor the waiting. They carved into its stone, "What falls does not die. It becomes what we live by." Far away, where mountains meet the upper winds, new clouds were forming. Among them, a thin wisp shimmered with a strange knowing. It moved differently, slower, lower, listening. When other clouds boasted of height, it said nothing. When storms gathered, it followed, but did not rush. It had learned the language of return. Once over a forest of pines, the wind found it again. "You travel lightly," said the wind. "I remember you." The cloud smiled in its vaporous way. "I remember you too. Thank you for teaching me how to fall." The wind laughed. "No one teaches falling, only letting go." Below them, on a mountain path, a young woman paused in her climb. She was a painter, searching for colors she had only dreamed of. When she looked up, she saw the cloud lit from within a soft lamp, drifting across the evening sky. Without knowing why, she began to cry, not from sadness, but from recognition. "Something has forgiven me," she whispered. She opened her hands to the drizzle that had begun to fall, and it mixed with her tears until she could not tell the difference. As night descended, the cloud continued on its way, dissolving into the rhythm of air. It thought of the monk and the valley and the laughter of rain. It thought of the fear it once held, the fear of losing itself, and smiled at how small that fear now seemed. To fall softly, it whispered into the darkness, is the highest way to stay. And somewhere in the vast silence between stars, the earth turned over in sleep, dreaming of the gentle weight of rain. If you are listening now, Perhaps you too have held yourself too long, afraid that if you let go, you will vanish. But the truth is simpler. When you fall into life, you do not disappear. You change form. What you give returns in ways you cannot predict. The rain does not mourn the cloud, nor the sea the rain. Everything finds its home by releasing what it was. So breathe, feel the heaviness, gather in your chest the clouds of your own waiting, and then let them drift, soften, and finally fall. Fall into rest, into kindness, into the open arms of the earth that has always been waiting to receive you. Let go and become rain. Story 7. The Monk and the Mirror. Morning light entered the monastery like a guest who knew where to sit. It slipped across the floorboards, rested on the low table, then climbed the wall until it touched the bronze mirror that hung there, a round moon dulled by time. The mirror had no frame now, only a thin cord that held it from a nail. Its surface bore faint scratches, like memories that had almost been forgiven. Each day before the bells called the monks to meditation, Brother, and the youngest among them, would kneel before the mirror to wash his face. The basin's water reflected his features clearly enough, eyes not yet worn by patience, a mouth still too quick to form questions. He dipped his hands, lifted the water, and watched the droplets slip back into stillness. Then he looked at the mirror and saw not his reflection, but a smudge of light where his face should have been. He asked the elder monk, Master Ryosen, why does this mirror no longer show? The old man looked at it for a long time. Because you are looking at it, he said, and went on his way. That answer troubled Brother An. He had come to this mountain temple seeking clarity. He imagined enlightenment to be a brightness that could polish all confusion away, as a mirror polishes shadow. But clarity, he was learning, is not the same as knowing. It was winter when he arrived, snow like ash on the pines, the air thin as breath before prayer, and still he felt the restlessness of someone who had not yet met himself. One dawn, unable to sleep, he went to the meditation hall and sat in darkness. He heard the drip of melted snow from the eaves, the soft yawn of the world waking. The mirror hung opposite him, just visible in the faint light. He stared at it until his eyes blurred. The longer he looked, the less he saw. At last, the surface seemed to breathe, not outward, but inward, as if drawing his attention into its depth. He remembered a teaching he had once heard in the city. A mirror reflects only what stands before it. Wisdom reflects what stands within. He had thought it poetic, but now it felt literal. He closed his eyes and let the darkness fill him, like ink poured into water. For a moment, he forgot the room, the mountain, even his own name. What remained was a feeling of quiet awareness, something watching itself. When he opened his eyes again, dawn had broken fully, and the mirror glowed. His face was visible now, faint, but certain. Yet he noticed something strange. It was not the face he knew. The lines were older, softer, calm in a way he had never managed. He touched his cheek. The reflection did not move. He whispered, "Who are you?" The figure smiled, almost imperceptibly. The smile rippled the image like wind on a pond. And then it was gone. He ran to find Master Ryosen. The old monk was tending the garden, pruning frost-bitten branches. "Master brother," An said breathlessly, "the mirror showed me a face, but not mine." Ryosen clipped another branch and said, "All faces are yours when you stop naming them." But it was older. It looked like. The master set down the shears and wiped his hands. It looked like the one who watches you when you aren't looking. That day, Brother An worked in silence, his mind a tide, pulling between curiosity and unease. He swept the courtyard, fetched water, copied sutras, but the mirror's image followed him like the echo of a bell that refused to fade. Night fell heavy with rain. The other monks retired, but he remained in the hall. Candlelight shivered on the walls. The mirror hung in shadow, a dark moon now. He felt drawn to it, the way a moth is drawn not to light, but to meaning. "Show me," he whispered. The candle's flame bent slightly, as if listening. Then, without sound, the mirror began to brighten, not from the candle, but from within itself. The light expanded, pulsed, and he saw again the face older, patient eyes, like wells that had seen every sky. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The reflection spoke, though its lips did not move, to stop wanting. The words did not startle him. They sank instead, like stones dropped into deep water. He said, "I came here to become wise." The mirror answered, "Then stop trying to be someone who becomes." "Then what should I do?" "Do not do. See?" The light dimmed. The surface went dull. The face was gone. When he told the master the next morning, Ryosen simply nodded. The mirror teaches, as the mountain does, by silence that moves when you listen. Days passed. Brother An continued his chores, but his gaze had changed. he began to notice things that before had been invisible, the way steam curled from rice bowls like prayers escaping hunger, the way moss grew thicker where footsteps were few, the faint hum that lived between the beats of the temple drum. Sometimes he stood before the mirror and saw nothing. Other times he saw flashes of faces, child, elder, stranger, beggar. He realized they were all gestures of the same being. The mirror was not showing him images. It was returning him to the space that held them all. Once, while sweeping, he asked the master, "What happens when the mirror breaks?" Ryosen smiled. "Then you see, without one." The following spring, the monks hosted a group of travelers who came to offer grain and incense. Among them was a woman who carried a small mirror of her own, polished and new. She caught Brother An looking at it and said, "It shows the truth, does it not?" He shook his head gently. "It shows the moment before truth." She laughed not unkindly. "And after truth?" He thought for a long time. "After truth, there is only seeing." That evening, as sunset bled over the valley, he returned to the hall. The bronze mirror caught the last light, its surface trembling with gold. He bowed to it, not as to an object, but as to an old friend. "Thank you," he said. The mirror, being what it was, said nothing. But as he turned to leave, he caught his reflection in the doorway. No longer separate, no longer searching, just a presence moving through another. Years later, when Brother An became the abbot, he found the mirror had begun to tarnish beyond repair. He could have polished it, but he chose not to. Instead, he hung it outside where rain and wind could finish what time had begun. When the next novice asked why, he said, "Because nothing that reflects stays unweathered, and nothing that is weathered forgets the light." The novice frowned. "But if it stops reflecting, what good is it?" The abbot smiled. "When it stops reflecting, it becomes the sky." And indeed, in certain dawns, the dull metal did resemble the morning sky, gray, vast, ungraspable. Birds landed on its edge without fear. The mirror no longer showed faces, but it held the shapes of clouds, and that was enough. When Brother An grew old, he would sometimes sit beneath it and watch his reflection fade in and out with the passing light. "We are all mirrors," he told the younger monks, "but we spend most of our lives trying to polish the glass instead of seeing what moves through it." Story 8. The Moon. Inside the water. Night had fallen upon the lake like a breath held in the hollow of the world. Around its still edges, reeds bent slightly toward the dark surface, whispering in tones softer than words. The air smelled of wet stone and pine sap, and above it all, the moon hung round and white as an unspoken thought. Every creature seemed to pause beneath that light. The frogs stilled their throats. The crickets slowed their rhythm. Even the wind held its hand. In that moment of suspended motion, the lake became a mirror without flaw. A silence wide enough to hold the sky. A young monk named Hiroshi walked along the water's edge, his sandals damp with dew. He had come from the temple on the mountain to spend a single night by the lake, for his teacher had told him, "When the moon rises, look not at the sky, but at the reflection." Hiroshi had bowed and said nothing, but inside his chest, he had wondered what wisdom could be found in looking down instead of up. He carried the restless heart of one who sought too quickly the kind of mind that mistook questions for progress. The lake's stillness made him uneasy, as if the quiet were a language he had not yet learned to speak. He found a flat stone and sat. The moon was rising now, lifting slowly over the ridge, pale and deliberate. Its light touched the tops of the pines, then slid down their trunks until it spilled across the water. The reflection was perfect, so perfect that he felt the impulse to reach out and touch it. He leaned forward, stretched his fingers over the surface, and watched the ripples bloom outward in circles of liquid glass. The moon broke apart instantly, becoming 1,000 trembling coins. When the water stilled again, its shape returned, but something had changed. The reflection looked smaller now, as though it had retreated just beyond his reach. Hiroshi sighed. "Even beauty runs from touch," he murmured. Behind him, the sound of footsteps, the soft, careful steps of age, moved through the reeds. His teacher, Master Genro, appeared carrying a lantern whose flame bowed with the wind. He placed it beside the monk and sat beside him, his knees creaking like old wood. "You disturbed the moon," he said, not as a rebuke, but as a fact. "I only wanted to see it more clearly," Hiroshi said. "And did you?" The young monk hesitated. "It vanished when I touched it." The master smiled faintly. "Then you have seen what cannot be taken." They sat in silence for a time. The lake breathed slowly, gathering the stars one by one into its dark heart. The lantern's flame fluttered. Hiroshi looked down again and saw not just the moon, but his own face beside it, trembling with every movement of the air. "If the water were still," he said, "perhaps I could see both clearly the moon, and myself. Master Genro nodded. But the world is never still, and neither are you. The moon does not mind the ripples. It simply shines through them. You wish to see truth without distortion, yet truth includes the distortion. Hiroshi frowned. Then how can one ever know what is real? The master lifted a small stone and dropped it into the water. The circles widened, intersected, vanished. What is real does not vanish when disturbed. It only changes its form of appearing. For the rest of the night, they sat without speech. The moon rose higher, growing thinner and colder. Hiroshi's thoughts moved like insects caught in amber, trapped by their own clarity. Eventually, he fell asleep, sitting upright, and when he woke, the sky was pale with dawn. The master was gone. The only trace of him was the lantern now unlit, and a note tied to its handle. Return when you can see the moon without looking. He stared at the note for a long time, reading and rereading, as though the paper itself might explain its meaning. Finally, he folded it and tucked it inside his robe. For many weeks, after Hiroshi could not forget that night, the reflection haunted him the way it had shattered, the way it had reformed, the way his teacher had watched, without telling him what it meant. Each time he passed a puddle after rain, he paused to look for the moon. Sometimes he saw only his own shadow. Sometimes nothing at all. At first, this unsettled him, but slowly it began to feel less like loss and more like invitation. Months later, during the first breath of autumn, the abbot sent Hiroshi down to the village to deliver grain and herbs. The path wound through terraced fields where farmers stooped beneath straw hats, their songs rising and falling with the rhythm of scythes. As he walked, the young monk noticed the water running through the irrigation channels, clear, lively, unafraid of movement. Every curve caught a glint of sky. He stopped at one bend and saw a fragment of the moon floating among the ripples, white and small, but unmistakable. He smiled, realizing it did not matter that the surface was disturbed. The reflection persisted, reshaping itself with every passing second. "It's not the moon that wavers," he whispered. "It's the eye that watches." He carried that thought back to the temple. As years passed, Hiroshi grew quieter. The other monks noticed his stillness, but did not ask about it. They saw how he rose before dawn to sweep the courtyards, how he paused to watch the mist dissolve in sunlight, how he smiled at the smallest things, a leaf turning in wind, a bowl's rim catching light. Inside him, something that once strained forward had begun to lean inward, instead like a plant discovering its own gravity. Yet even then, the moon continued to follow him, appearing in windows, in bowls of tea, in the glossy surface of ink. One evening, when his teacher was nearing the end of his life, Hiroshi found him sitting on the veranda. The master's breath came thin, like wind moving through hollow reeds. "Tell me," he said without opening his eyes, "what do you see now when you look at the moon?" Hiroshi bowed deeply. "I see it everywhere, even when it hides. When the sky is empty, I still feel its light in my chest." The old man nodded. "Then you have seen the moon inside the water." He did not speak again. The next morning, when the monks came to wake him, they found him smiling, his hands folded as if in meditation. The lantern from that night by the lake sat beside him, newly polished, though no one knew who had cleaned it. During the funeral rites, Hiroshi carried the urn to the edge of the same lake. The moon was full again, its reflection calm and wide. He set the urn down and whispered, "You are both sky and water now." Then, taking a deep breath, he opened the lid and let the ashes scatter. The ripples carried them outward, each one a brief life of motion before it vanished into stillness. He watched until the last circle faded. Then he looked up. The moon shone, untouched, round, and whole. He smiled, not at the sky, not at the reflection, but at the space between them. Years turned like pages of wind. Hiroshi became abbot of the temple, though he often laughed when the younger monks called him master. A master is just a student who has forgotten to stop learning, he would say. Each new novice he sent to the lake, telling them, "When the moon rises, look not at the sky, but at the reflection." Most returned puzzled, as he once had been. Some returned angry, thinking it a riddle. A few returned silent, their eyes carrying a light that needed no explaining. One night, near the end of his own life, Hiroshi went again to the lake. The air was warm, fragrant with lotus and silt. He sat on the same stone where he had once reached out to touch the moon. His hands trembled now, but not from desire. The moon rose as it always had, pure and patient. It laid a path of light across the water, and this time he did not reach. He only breathed. The reflection rippled with his breath, yet he saw that it never truly broke. It danced. It answered. The moon within the water was not apart from the sky. It was the sky made intimate. He whispered to the darkness, "There is no separation." A wind moved through the reeds. The water sighed. Hiroshi closed his eyes, and for a moment, the world felt weightless. When the monks found him the next morning, he was still sitting there, his head bowed slightly, as though listening to something beneath the surface. The lake was calm, the moon's pale image floating in the daylight. They did not move him at once. Instead, they stood quietly, watching how his reflection and the moon's merged together on the water. One of them said he has returned to his teacher. Another replied, he has returned to the moon. And the youngest among them, who had not yet learned the difference between question and wonder, whispered, no, he has returned to himself. The wind lifted the surface just then, and for an instant, all three reflections, the monk, the moon, and the sky, became one. If you are listening now, remember, this peace is not found by reaching for light, but by realizing it was always shining through you. The moon inside the water does not disappear when the surface moves. It waits patiently beneath every ripple, certain of its own return. So when life stirs your calm, when loss sends circles across your heart, do not despair. Sit by your lake. Watch the disturbance fade. And when you see your reflection blur and reform, know that you are witnessing the same truth Hiroshi saw, that nothing real can ever be broken, and that light, whether in sky or in water or in you, is always whole. The moon will rise again tonight, as it always does, asking nothing, offering everything. All you need to do is look not above, not below, but within the quiet mirror that is your own heart, where every ripple is also a reflection, and every reflection a reminder of home. Story 9. The Tea That Waited. The kettle began to hum before dawn, a low, patient sound that rose like breath from the heart of the small temple kitchen. Outside, the garden still dreamed beneath its veil of fog. The stones were dark with dew, and the first birds had not yet remembered their names. Inside, the old monk poured a handful of tea leaves into a clay pot and waited. His name was Cheyenne, though the villagers simply called him the one who listens. Every morning for 40 years, he had followed the same quiet ritual heat, the water prepare the cup, and wait until the tea itself decided to be ready. The younger monks often teased him gently for his slowness. Master, they would say, your tea must be the shyest in Japan. The world wakes, works, and sleeps again before your cup is even half poured. Cheyenne only smiled, his eyes curved like the rim of the moon. The tea is not shy, he would reply. It is waiting for me to stop hurrying. On that morning, as steam curled from the kettle and the first light bled through the shoji screens, a new novice entered the kitchen. He was barely 20, thin as a reed and quick as a spark. His name was Ren. He bowed deeply. "Master Shion," he said, "the abbot has sent me to learn the ceremony from you." Shion nodded toward the mat beside him. "Then sit." Ren knelt. The air smelled of roasted barley and the faint sweetness of the old pine beams. He watched the master pour a small stream of hot water into the teapot, swirl it once, and pour it out. "Why waste water?" Ren asked. Shion chuckled. "I am not wasting it. I am teaching the pot to remember warmth." The young monk blinked. "Can a pot remember?" "Everything remembers," said Shion, "if you wait long enough to notice." He filled the pot again this time with fresh water and placed the lid gently on top. The kettle sang softly beside them. Ren leaned forward, eager. "Now you pour it into the cups." Shion shook his head. "No? Now we let it speak." Ren frowned. "It's just tea." The old monk smiled, but his gaze went beyond the boy to the window where the fog was lifting, revealing the outline of the mountain. "If you think it is only tea, you will never taste it. If you listen long enough, even silence will pour you a cup." They waited. The minutes stretched thin, then thick, again the way time does when one stops measuring it. Ren shifted restlessly. He could hear his own heartbeat, louder than the kettle now. "How do you know when it's ready?" he asked. Shion closed his eyes. "When I no longer am." Ren didn't understand, but something in the monk's stillness silenced further questions. When the tea was finally poured, its color was neither green nor brown, but something between like sunlight through old paper. Ren tasted it. It was warm, almost sweet, and strangely alive. "It tastes patient," he said. Shion nodded. "Patience is the flavor of truth." From that day on, Ren came to the kitchen each morning before dawn. The master taught him not by words, but by pauses, how to hold the cup without clutching, how to listen for the first whisper of steam, how to bow before the leaf as one would before a teacher. Sometimes they brewed in silence for hours. Sometimes the master told stories that seemed to have no ending. One morning, Shion said, "Do you know why tea must wait?" Ren thought for a long time. "Because the water needs to cool. Because the world does." Shion said, "Everything good arrives slowly." That winter, the snow came early, thick as wool. The mountain disappeared beneath white silence. Supplies from the village grew scarce, and the monks lived mostly on rice and tea. One night, Ren brought a bucket of snow to melt for water. Cheyenne watched the crystals dissolve into clear liquid. "See how it changes without argument," he said. "That is the secret of both tea and peace. Be willing to melt." Weeks passed, and Cheyenne's cough deepened. He drank his tea slowly, as though counting breaths. Ren begged him to rest, but the old monk only smiled. "If I rest more, I will stop waking." One evening, the wind howled through the temple corridors, rattling the wooden doors like old bones. Cheyenne sat beside the kettle, his robe wrapped tight, his eyes half closed. Ren entered quietly. "Master," he whispered, "shall I make the tea tonight?" Cheyenne nodded. "Yes. Let the water teach you when to pour." Ren filled the kettle and lit the flame. He tried to recall every gesture, the swirl, the waiting, the way the steam curved like breath leaving a dream. But his hands trembled. He feared the water might boil too long or too short. Finally, he turned to ask, "Is it ready?" But Cheyenne was already gone. The cup beside him was empty. Ren knelt there for a long time, not crying, not even breathing, fully, just listening. The kettle hummed softly, a song without urgency. He poured the water over the leaf, waited, and when he lifted the cup to his lips, it tasted of both presence and absence. The next morning, the other monks found Ren still sitting there, the tea cold between his hands. They carried the master's body to the garden and buried him beneath the plum tree. When spring came, the tree bloomed earlier than any could remember, its blossoms pale as steam. Ren continued to make tea each dawn, as Cheyenne had taught him. The novices whispered that he brewed with ghosts, for sometimes he spoke softly to the empty mat beside him. "Are you waiting for me, Master?" they heard him say. "Or am I waiting for you?" Years later, Ren himself became known as the monk who never rushed. Travelers from distant provinces came to taste his tea. They said it could quiet the heart and make the tongue forget bitterness. When asked his secret, he always replied, "I do not make tea. I wait with it." One summer, a young pilgrim came to the temple. She had been wandering for months. Her sandals torn her spirit, raw from too many prayers unanswered. She bowed before Ren and said, "I heard you serve tea that can make one understand." Ren smiled. "Understand what?" "The reason for waiting." He poured her a cup. They drank in silence. The wind played with the bamboo outside. A cicada began its long, slow song. When she finished, she looked up and said, "It doesn't taste like anything I've ever known." "It tastes like this moment," Ren said. Tears filled her eyes. "It's gone already." Ren nodded. "So is everything. But while it was here, did you not taste eternity?" The woman bowed deeply, her tears falling into the empty cup. When she left, she took nothing with her but a softer way of breathing. Ren grew old. His hands shook when he lifted the kettle, yet his tea never lost its calm. One morning, as snow began to fall again outside, he set out 2 cups, though he was alone. He poured one for himself and one for his teacher. "You see," he said softly, "I have learned your patience." He waited until the steam faded, then drank. The warmth spread through him slowly, not like fire, but like memory returning home. He closed his eyes, and in the stillness, he felt Cheyenne beside him. "Master," he whispered, "when does the waiting end?" And from somewhere within the silence came the answer: "When you realize you were never waiting at all." Outside, the snow thickened, covering the garden in white forgetfulness. The kettle cooled. The last wisp of steam rose, then vanished, curling upward like a final breath that didn't need to be named. The novices found Ren seated peacefully, his cup empty, his lips curved in a faint smile. They buried him beside the plum tree. That spring, the blossoms were so many that the branches bent under their weight. And when the wind passed through them, it carried a scent like fresh tea and time made tender. In the village below, people still tell the story of the 2 monks who taught tea to wait, though none agree on its ending. Some say the old master still brews for travelers lost in the mountains. Others say the lake near the temple tastes faintly of green leaves after rain. But the elders, when asked, only laugh. The tea is still waiting, they say. It always will, until you stop hurrying to drink it. And if you listen closely, just before dawn, when fog lies thick and the world is holding its breath, you might hear the soft hiss of water meeting leaf, the whisper of patience steeping into being. It is the sound of time remembering itself, of warmth finding its cup. If you are listening now, wherever you are, take a breath. Feel how the air enters slowly as water fills a vessel. Do not rush. The tea that waits is not on your table. It is in you. All the warmth you seek has been steeping quietly inside, waiting only for you to notice its fragrance. When you do, lift it gently. Drink deeply. And as you do, let the world slow enough for a single truth to rise. Nothing truly worth tasting ever hurries to arrive. Story 10. The forest that slept. Evening came softly to the valley, folding the world in a blue so deep it felt almost like silence made visible. The last birds had called to one another and gone quiet. The wind, having spent its strength over the hills, now moved like a tired animal through the tall grasses. And in the midst of that stillness stood the forest, a vast, ancient breathing of trunks and leaves and unseen roots stretching farther than memory. To those who lived nearby, it was known simply as the forest that slept, for it seemed to move only when the rest of the world forgot itself. Long ago, the elders said this forest had been awake. The trees spoke in the tongues of rain, the streams sang to the stars, and even stones rolled themselves from one place to another in curiosity. But over time, as men began to cut and count, as the rhythm of axes replaced the rhythm of wind, the forest withdrew inward. It did not die, it rested. It folded its voice into the soil, tucked its dreams beneath the moss, and waited for the world to become quiet again. One morning, many years after the last axe had rusted, a wanderer arrived at the edge of that forest. His name was Kaoru, though no one in the nearby village knew it yet. He carried only a small pack, a worn journal, and a flute wrapped in cloth. His eyes held the same distant patience as the mountains he had crossed. When the villagers asked where he came from, he said only, "From the places that taught me to listen." The innkeeper, a gray-haired woman with kind wrinkles, warned him, "The forest is no place to sleep. It swallows paths and returns silence. People say it dreams, and those who stay too long forget their own names." Kaoru bowed slightly. "Then perhaps it will remember mine for me." The next morning, before sunrise, he walked into the forest. The first thing he noticed was the texture of the light, thin green, and alive. It moved through the leaves like breath through a sleeping body. Every sound seemed distant, yet near a single drop falling from a fern. A hidden bird rearranging its wings, the faint murmur of the stream that ran somewhere unseen. He felt not watched, but welcomed, as though the forest had been expecting him. He walked until the sun was high, following no path, for the ground itself seemed to guide him. At last, he came upon a clearing, round and moss-soft, with a pool at its center. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the sky so clearly it felt like a window rather than a surface. He set down his pack, unwrapped his flute, and played a single note, low soft, like the beginning of a question. The sound hung in the air, then dissolved into the leaves. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the pool shivered, as if something beneath had stirred. He waited. A small breeze rose, moving through the clearing, with the gentleness of memory. The trees swayed slightly, not enough to make a sound, just enough to remind him that they were listening. He closed his eyes and played again. This time, the notes came without effort, as if the flute itself remembered an old song. The melody wound through the branches, down the trunks, across the moss, until it reached the pool once more. The surface rippled. A single leaf fell and floated there, turning slowly. When he stopped, the silence that followed felt deeper than before, like a well filled with stars. He sat for a while, then lay down on the moss and fell asleep. In his dream, the forest spoke, not in words, but in sensations, the cool weight of earth, the slow stretch of roots finding one another, the hum of sap rising through wood. He felt himself dissolving into that rhythm. Time lost its edges. When he awoke, the sun was gone, and the first stars had begun to bloom above the canopy. He stayed there through the night. The forest breathed around him. At dawn, when the fog rose from the ground like smoke from an unseen fire, Kaoru saw something new beside the pool. A young sapling had grown where none had been before. Its leaves were pale, translucent, trembling slightly, though there was no wind. He touched its stem. It was warm. He smiled, not surprised. "So you were listening," he whispered, each day after he returned to the clearing. He played at dawn and dusk, never the same melody twice. The forest listened. The sapling grew. And Kaoru began to notice subtle changes, the moss thickening birds, returning small flowers, opening in colors he had no names for. It was as though each note coaxed the forest to wake a little more. But not everyone was pleased. When he returned to the village for supplies, the innkeeper frowned. "The hunters say the trees have started whispering again," she told him. "They hear voices where there used to be only wind. Are you sure what you're doing is wise?" Kaoru smiled gently. "The forest is remembering its song. Songs can summon storms," she said. He bowed. "So can silence." He left again before nightfall. Weeks passed. Rain came soft at first, then heavy, soaking the valley until the rivers swelled. The villagers began to worry. "He's angered it," they said. "The forest stirs in its sleep." But Kaoru knew otherwise. He stood in his clearing as the rain poured his hair plastered to his face and played until his fingers ached. The forest answered not with words, but with scent, the smell of wet soil, new roots, the deep sweetness of things long buried, rising toward the air. When the storm finally ended, the air felt lighter, the way it does after tears. Kaoru looked around and saw that the sapling had become a tree. Its branches arched over the pool. Its leaves caught the sunlight and scattered it like gold dust. The forest was awake. He bowed deeply. "Thank you," he said, and the wind that moved through the branches sounded almost like a reply. From that day forward, travelers who passed through the valley told strange stories. They said that at night, when the moon climbed above the trees, the forest seemed to breathe, that a faint music drifted through the mist, notes so soft you felt them more than heard them. Some said they saw light beneath the leaves, as if the ground itself glowed. Others said they dreamed more peacefully there than anywhere else. Kaoru lived many years beside that clearing. He built a small hut and tended the trees as one tends old friends. He taught the children of the village to walk quietly among roots, to bow before cutting any branch, to leave offerings of rice and salt at the forest's edge. The villagers who had once feared the sleeping woods began to visit often. They called it the forest that breathes again. But Kaoru knew the forest was not simply awake, it was aware. It had learned to dream while waking, to move without moving. Sometimes, when he played the flute, he could feel the trees breathing with him. One winter, when he was old and his hair had turned the color of ash, he grew ill. The villagers came to care for him, but he asked to be taken to the clearing instead. "If I must leave," he said, "let it be where the forest can remember me." They carried him there on a simple litter of branches. Snow was falling lightly, covering the moss in white. The pool was half frozen, the tree above it bare. He asked for his flute. The villagers hesitated. It was cracked, now worn thin, but he smiled. "It will do." He played one final song so faint that even the wind bent close to hear. When he finished, he placed the flute beside the tree, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Rest as I have." The forest felt utterly still. In spring, the snow melted, and where his body had lain, a ring of small flowers bloomed white with centers the color of old wood. The villagers called them the sleeper's blossoms, and on nights when the moon shone full, they swore the tree's branches moved in rhythm to a melody no one could quite recall. Years passed into decades. The forest continued to breathe. The children of the village grew and had children of their own, and they told them, if you walk quietly at dawn, you can still hear the forest dreaming. Some who ventured deep enough said they saw the reflection of an old man in the pool, though the surface was perfectly still. He was not ghostly or frightening, only peaceful, as if listening to something infinite. And so, the forest that slept became the forest that remembered. It taught everyone who entered that to rest is not to die, and to listen is another way of being alive. If you are listening now, let the sound of this story settle over you, the way dusk settles over trees. Let it soften the noise of your thoughts. The world around you, too, is a forest, breathing, waiting alive even in its stillness. You do not need to wake it. You only need to rest with it. Close your eyes. Feel the air around you, the quiet beneath it. Somewhere deep in that silence, something ancient and kind is turning toward you, ready to remember your voice when you are ready to be quiet enough to hear it. And when you sleep, may you dream, as the forest does not, of tomorrow or yesterday, but of the simple, endless rhythm of breath and leaf wind and soil being and release. For all things, even the mountains and the stars, must one day learn what the forest has always known, that peace is not found in motion, but in the tender art of sleeping while still awake. When night slips into stillness, we no longer hear anything but our own steady breathing. Yet in that very quiet, something is slowly unfolding like a lotus seed, cracking open in wet mud, like moonlight piercing a thin veil of mist, like the voice of the Buddha resonating from the depths of mind without needing words. After 10 stories, what remains is not an ending, but a return. Each story is a mirror reflecting the face of the way, a face without form, without age, without borders. And when we gaze long enough, we no longer see the story. We only see ourselves sitting quietly in the light of understanding. The Buddha once said, "No one saves anyone except oneself. No one awakens anyone except one's own mind." These words are not distant. They are a call from the present, an invitation to look again at how we are living in each breath. When we live in haste, we drop the most peaceful part of our mind. When we strive to prove something, we forget that truth needs no proving. And when we fear, get angry, cling, we forget that all things are also transforming. Drops of water turn to clouds, clouds to rain, rain return to the river. Each of these flows is a lesson in impermanence. In that light, we understand that impermanence is not scary. It is a gentle reminder that nothing is lost forever, only changing its way of being. A flower wilts to make way for a new seed to sprout. The sun sets so the moon can shine upon the water. One person leaves so another knows love. The Buddha calls that the natural functioning of the Dhamma a ceaseless flow, carrying no intention, yet wise enough to keep the world in balance. When we let go of clinging, we begin to live in the rhythm of that flow. The Buddha also taught that the root of suffering is craving aversion, ignorance, 3 silent fires burning in the human heart. But he did not tell us to extinguish them with fear. He told us to look straight at them with the light of mindfulness. Look at anger when it rises, as you would look at a dark cloud in a clear sky. See it, do not intervene, pursue, or hold. Look at craving as you would at a hungry child seeking milk, compassionate, not scolding, not indulging. Look at ignorance as a person lost in the night. Do not blame, simply light a lamp. In each complete seeing, suffering dissolves. Not because we drive it away, but because the light of understanding leaves no room for it. When we practice like this, each breath becomes a sutra. Breathe in. Know you are breathing in, that is mindfulness. Breathe out. Know you are breathing out, that is abiding. When the breath is seen, the mind is seen too. And in a brief moment of awakening, we realize nothing needs changing. Nothing needs to be perfect. Right now, everything is already enough. The Buddha calls this nirvana right here, where suffering ends, not because of external conditions, but because we stop creating more suffering. Like the river in the first story that learned to rest, we also learn not to fight ourselves. Some days, the mind is like a flood overflowing its banks. Some days, it is as still as an autumn lake. Both deserve welcome. Like the candle that bows to the wind, we learn softness amid change. The flame bows not to go out, but to burn longer. Like the lotus rising from mud, we see that adversity itself nourishes purity of heart. Like the cracked bell that still rings, we learn that wounds do not ruin us. They make our echoes truer. And like the mountain bowing to the ocean, we know that letting go is not weakness. Letting go is accepting the deepest nature of all things. Nothing stands alone. The mountain needs rain. Rain needs clouds. Clouds need the sea. The sea needs wind. Wind needs earth. Earth needs the mountain. And we need it all. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are co-arising. There is no separate me existing independently. When we see this, we no longer fight life. We become part of life, like a dewdrop becoming light when the sun rises. The cloud learns how to fall softly, teaching us that letting go does not lose. Letting go is returning to the nature of flow. When we know how to weep, how to let our pain fall, we ourselves are reigning. When we laugh through our tears, the earth within us is being watered. And when we are silent, the seed of peace begins to sprout. The Buddha calls this the practice of compassion, not pity, but an unconditional opening of heart to all that is living. The monk and the mirror teach us about no self. The mirror never holds any shadow, so it is always clear. When we know how to let go of name, let go of right and wrong, let go of our own image, we become transparent like the mirror. Then we no longer need to search for the Buddha, because the Buddha is present in the sight that no longer carries the image of I. The moon reflected in the water offers us a lesson in truth. When the water is disturbed, the moon appears distorted. When the water is still, the moon becomes whole again. But the moon in the sky has never changed. It is only our mind that wavers. Once we understand this, we stop searching for perfection outside ourselves. Whether the water is muddy or clear, the light remains. The Buddha called this our innate awareness, a light that neither arises nor fades. The waiting teacup teaches us patience. The aroma of tea cannot be forced. It only releases itself when the time is right. Just like enlightenment, it does not come through forceful effort, but through the right moment of stillness. When we stop rushing, every moment becomes deeper. When we stop grasping, what we need naturally finds its way to us. The Buddha once said, "If you know how to stop, you have already arrived." And the forest that knows how to sleep is the final teaching, a teaching of rest, of non-conceptuality. The forest seeks nothing but to breathe with the earth. It is quiet, but within that quiet, countless sprouts are rising, countless sap streams are flowing. Meditation is not an escape from life. It is to live so deeply that we can hear the earth shifting beneath our feet. When we learn to sleep with awareness, we understand that rest is not a loss, but a return to the natural rhythm of the Dharma. All 10 stories gathered into a single breath hold just one teaching. Come home. Come home to the body, the mind, the present moment. There suffering is seen and dissolves. Happiness arises without needing a reason. The Buddha did not create a religion to be worshipped. He simply handed us a mirror so each of us could reflect. And when we reflect long enough, we see no Buddha, no one reflecting only light, reflecting itself. So do not search for nirvana somewhere far away. It is not on the highest mountain, nor hidden in some deep temple. It is in the way we lift a leaf without tearing it, in the way we speak without hurting, in the way we sit quietly and let the wind pass through our hair without adding another thought. Nirvana is not a reward. It is the natural state that arises when we stop stirring the water. Tonight, if you are listening to these words, let your heart settle like a still lake. Every teaching, every philosophy, every path leads back to this breath. You do not need to understand. You only need to feel. Breathe in. I am alive. Breathe out. I know I am here. Between those two breaths, the world becomes whole, becomes enough. And when you close your eyes, sleep will come, not as something you wait for, but as a return. Within you, the 10 stories continue not to be told again, but to whisper one simple truth. You do not need to become anyone else. Just awaken in this moment and love. And if you are still awake, still sitting in the night, quietly listening as each word melts like dew, then perhaps this is the moment when all sounds have stopped seeking you, that the Buddha's teachings begin to truly echo within you, not through voice, not through text, but through the presence of what is. In that silence, we begin to understand why the Buddha called everything a magical illusion. Not because life is meaningless, but because we have forgotten to see it with awake eyes. All joy and sorrow, gain and loss, right and wrong, are but waves. Waves may rise or calm, but the ocean remains the ocean. When our mind becomes the ocean, the waves no longer threaten. They simply remind us that we are still alive. And to be alive is to see movement, to see dissolving, to see how impermanence is teaching us love every single day. Once, a disciple asked the Buddha, "World-honored one, how do I know I am on the right path?" He smiled. "If your heart feels lighter as you walk, you are on the right path. If you must drag yourself forward, you are going the wrong way. It is that simple." The path of awakening is not paved with arguments, but with steps taken in awareness. The Buddha never asked us to fly. He only taught us how to walk. And each step, however small, if walked in mindfulness, brings us closer to freedom. And when we look back, we see that freedom is not the absence of everything, but being within everything while remaining at ease. A person can wash dishes, drive a car, work, raise children, but do so in awareness. Do so without being swept away. Do so as an act of presence, not of memory or longing. Then, ordinary life becomes meditation, and meditation becomes a way of life. Just as when the Buddha taught about no self, he did not mean for us to deny our existence, but to see the boundlessness within all boundaries. The self does not need to be erased. It only needs to be seen with compassion. When we stop clinging to me, all lines soften, and the world begins to blend like vapor into air. We stop asking, "How am I different from that person?" and instead ask, "How can we ease each other's suffering?" Another time, someone asked the Buddha, "Do you have any miracles?" He replied, "I can eat when I am hungry, sleep when I am tired, smile when I hear a bird's song." The greatest miracle, it turns out, is to be fully present in this moment. So if you have ever asked, "What is meditation for?" look again at yourself in your most ordinary moments. When you pour water and hear it flow. When you open your eyes to morning light falling into your room. When you wash your face and feel the coolness of water. When you smile for no reason. That is meditation. That is the Buddha breathing in you. Because the Buddha never taught religion. He taught the art of living. Living truthfully. Living mindfully. Living with a heart not clouded by past or future. An awakened person is not someone who has left the world behind, but someone who sees the world clearly in each moment and smiles with it. Remember, within each sorrow lies a seed of understanding. When you look deeply into suffering, you will see that love is imprisoned inside it. Just as mud holds the fragrance of lotus. Without mud, there is no lotus. Without suffering, there is no compassion. So do not fear your pain. Look at it with the Buddha's light, not avoiding, not clinging, it's only seeing. And if one day your life feels like it is falling apart, remember that even a cracked bell still rings. It is the crack that makes the sound real. The heart is the same. The more it has been awakened through pain, the more it knows how to vibrate with love. The Buddha taught, all that we are today is the result of what we have thought. So, if you want to change your life, you don't need to change heaven and earth, just change your way of looking. A kind thought can soften the whole day. A mindful breath can dissolve a fit of anger. A grateful smile can save a weary soul. And if you ask, what is awakening? Perhaps the answer lies in how you are listening to these words right now. Not listening to understand, but listening to feel. Not seeking a teaching, but letting the heart open on its own, like a lotus blooming in a calm pond. Awakening is not far. It is right here in the moment we stop chasing it. When the Buddha touched the earth beneath him on the night of his awakening, he did not prove anything. He simply said, "The earth bears witness." Because the earth does not speak yet, it always remains present. In the same way, when you are still, the whole universe is still. When you see, the universe is seen. And if you are weary, remember the forest in the final story, where Kaioru sleeps in the sound of the wind. The forest does not pray. It does not argue. It does not try to become quiet. It simply is. When you allow yourself to be, you touch the deepest meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine the Buddha sitting beside you, saying nothing, just smiling. That smile does not reach outwards. It reaches into your own heart, the place he never left. Now breathe. The breath enters gentle like light and leaves like a wave dissolving. Between the two rhythms, you need do nothing. No need to become better. No need to erase mistakes. No need to go anywhere else. You only need to be present. Then those 10 Zen stories won't be 10 stories anymore, but 10 doors opening to one. Truth. We are all awake if we dare to listen. And in that moment, in the still night, in the slow breath, you realize the Buddha never left this world. He lives in every breath you've just taken, in every silence you just sat in every thought you returned to. That is the absolute peace people have sought for centuries, not somewhere distant, not after death, not in lofty doctrines. It is here, in you, right now. And when you open your eyes, dawn will come, not as a new day, but as a new awakening of your own heart. Gentle, bright, and enough. When dawn begins to glow on the horizon, the sky changes color, very slowly. There is no sharp line between night and light, between dark and clarity. Everything gradually shifts, gradually blends, gradually dissolves. And likewise, within us, the deepest part is gradually shifting from ignorance to awakening, from fear to insight, from longing to presence. The Buddha said, just as the sky does not cling to the cloud, the mind that is luminous does not cling to defilement. When we understand this, we stop trying to chase away the darkness. Darkness cannot be driven out. It only fades when we light a lamp. And the lamp is mindfulness. Mindfulness is not forcing the mind to quiet. It is the noticing of whatever is happening. Knowing that you are breathing. Knowing that you are sad. Knowing that you are afraid. Knowing without judging, like a gentle mother, watching her child cry without needing to stop the tears. When that knowing is present, suffering begins to dissolve, not because we drive it away, but because it is seen by light. Have you noticed that in every story above the Buddha never says a word? Yet, he is present in every detail in the river, that knows how to rest in the mountain, that bows its head in the cup of tea, waiting in the forest that sleeps. He does not teach with scriptures, but with full presence. Everything, when seen with mindfulness, becomes a teacher. Try watching a falling leaf. If you watch with a busy mind, it is just a meaningless leaf. But if you watch with a calm heart, you will see all 4 seasons in it: spring, budding, summer, green, autumn, gold, winter, falling. You will see that the leaf does not die. It simply transforms, returning to the earth to make way for new life. Impermanence, when understood with wisdom, is no longer a tragedy, but a song of continuity. The Buddha said, "See life as a dewdrop on a blade of grass, shimmering, beautiful, but vanishing fast." It sounds like a warning, yet it is truly a word of liberation. Because when we know everything will vanish, we begin to love more. We will not let anger linger. We will not postpone love. We will know to say thank you while we still can, to hold a hand while it is still warm, to remain silent when we do not need to win. And when we live like that, each day becomes meditation. Meditation is no longer an hour seated on a cushion, but the art of living awake. It is the way we listen to others without interrupting. It is the way we walk without crushing a twig. It is the way we wash dishes, wipe a table, brew tea, without leaving the present moment. Meditation is when you watch the sunrise without thinking anything, just seeing it rise. When we understand more deeply, we realize the Buddha never taught what to do. He only taught, look more closely. Because when you look closely, naturally, every act becomes true. Looking closely naturally, you will know what to say, when to stop. Wisdom does not come from learning more. It comes from seeing clearly. One day, someone asked the Buddha, "What did you see when you awakened?" He replied, "I saw that there was no one to awaken." That answer confused many people. But for those who have sat still in the wind, have listened to the falling leaves, have seen thoughts arise and pass away, they will understand when we awaken, the I is no longer the little self. We are everything. We are the one who watches the scene, being watched, the breath passing through the silence surrounding that breath. The Buddha did not just teach the path for humans. He taught for the trees, the wind, the water, because in the eyes of awakening, there is no separation. All are expressions of the same source of life. The tree also meditates when it stands still, absorbing the breeze. The sea also chants the Buddha's name when its waves follow the breath of the earth and sky. And you, when you sit quietly, listen to yourself, are also walking the path of his. There is a wondrous thing. The more awake we become, the softer we grow. The more we understand, the more we love. True wisdom does not make us arrogant, but makes us gentle as the earth. When we see clearly non-self, we cease to fight about right and wrong. When we see clearly impermanence, we stop trying to hold on to anything forever. When we see clearly suffering, we no longer hate suffering. When we see clearly happiness, we no longer fear its loss. The Buddha taught that happiness does not come from having less sadness, but from knowing how to embrace sadness with the light of understanding. Just like the sun does not chase away the darkness, it simply shines. If you are weary, drop your shoulders. Inhale deeply. Exhale. In that breath, the Buddha is smiling. He is not up in the heavens, not sitting in a stone statue, but right here in the breath that knows how to return. You do not need to find him. You only need to stop forgetting him. The world out there will still be noisy. The news will still bombard you. People will still compete, will still fear, will still crave. But amidst that whirlpool, just one person knowing how to breathe creates one more realm of calm. Just one person knowing how to listen can ease the suffering of thousands of others around them. The Buddha never demanded that we be perfect. He only invited us to be present. Present when we are joyful. Present when we are sad. Present even when we are lost. Because even in being lost, the seed of awakening is already present. When we know we are lost, we have already begun to awaken. And then we will understand that the path of meditation does not lead us somewhere else. It only leads us home, back to the place we never left, back to the mind that never was born, never died, back to this moment where all noise dissolves, where the breath reconnects the rhythm between us and the universe. Then we see there is no storyteller, no listener, no story. There is only a living stream telling itself in innumerable forms, sometimes the sound of a bell, sometimes the moonlight, sometimes a tear falling. And finally, we understand the Buddha's deepest teaching. I am all and all is me. Not to be proud, but so that when we bow before a grain of dust, we see ourselves in it. When we look into another's eyes, we see the whole universe looking back. When we hear the rain, we know the rain is not only falling outside the door, but falling inside our own heart, washing away the worn days of exhaustion. Let tonight drift away like that light, deep and clear. Not an ending, but the beginning of a different way of living. Living like the river that knows rest. Like the candle that knows how to bow. Like the lotus that knows how to bloom in the mud. Like the cracked bell that still rings. Like the mountain that knows how to salute the sea. Like the cloud that knows how to fall soft. Like the mirror that knows not to cling to its reflection. Like the moon that knows how to reflect. Like the cup of tea that knows how to wait. And like the forest that knows how to sleep while still breathing. Because in every flower, every speck of dust, every heartbeat, every breath, the Buddha is living. Not distant, not faint, not past. Right here in this moment where you just exhaled and realized you are still alive. And that precisely is the Dharma in everyday life. And now, when the night is truly calm, when each word in the 10 Zen stories and the Buddha's teachings has melted into your breath, we come to the final part, not an end, but a gentle pause to close the journey. If right now you feel your heart lighter, if your eyes have closed without effort, if a small, warm space has opened in your chest, just in time, then what needed to come has come, and what needed to go has gone. Peace never left. It is still here inside you, like the moon still shining on the water, even when clouds pass by. The Buddha once taught, one lamp can light 10,000 lamps without losing its own light. If tonight you feel that small light flickering in your heart, please hold it and let it spread. Bring this calm into tomorrow, into your glance, into your words, into every small thing you do. That is how the Dharma continues to breathe in life. Thank you for staying with me, with the Zen stories, with the slow breaths and the genuine moments. If you feel these moments have brought a little peace to your soul, a little warmth, please subscribe to the channel so that every night we can sit together again, listen together, calm together, and enter sleep with a heart light as tea, smoke bright as the moon on water. Let this place become a small temple in your heart where there are no rituals, only breath and loving stillness. Each story, each breath, each night of meditation is a seed sown, and you are the soil in which that seed will sprout. May you have a very deep night, very gentle, very complete. May your tomorrow begin with gratitude for yourself, for life, and for even the smallest things. See you again on the next journey, where new Zen stories will continue to lead us through bright seasons, through silences, through your own path of the mind. Sleep well, and if you listen carefully, even in that sleep, the Buddha is still smiling in every breath you take. Please subscribe so that peace always finds its way back to you.